body of humanity, so big. Adventure calls me. This adventure calls me. To the gold, to the gold. This adventure calls me. I'll never stop, never stop, never stop until I find the goal. I'll never stop, never stop, never stop until I find the
Hello, it is the 18th of August, 2026. I'm Colin Davis, and the websites are shadowtechalchemy.com, solutioalchemy.com, melissamarimusic.com, and melissamarimovie.com, where you can see the trailer to the movie about Melissa. That was our band, the L1 Experience. And I think I think Melissa's performance on that is just man, so deep, so good, so shamanic, really. So here we are, our weekly hangout, our weekly talk, where we talk about everything alchemical, everything that has to do with working on yourself, with Jungian psychology, with inner alchemy, with awakening to the movie of life, as we called it, and everything that goes with these subjects. And of course, I'm very interested in taking things in the direction that you guys want to go. So if you want to call in, or if you want to comment in the chat about anything, we'll go in your direction. But I usually do a little bit of discussion, just to set the table before we do that. And I think we may talk to my friend Stephanie today. I'm hoping that that'll happen. And because she's, since Melissa passed, Stephanie is really, I think, the one person who really, she's not the only person I know who's on the path, but me and Melissa have known her, and I've known her for 5 years now, and we understand each other's language, and we've helped each other a lot, and so there's a lot of resonance there, and so and so it's really been a blessing in my life, really. So I'm hoping that she'll call in today, and that'll be a little bit later, and then I want to give you guys some, today was the show is called Ascending into Second Tier. And I don't know how many people know what that means, what second tier is. It refers to integral theory or to spiral dynamics theory, which is, these are theories of the advancement of human consciousness is what they are. And Ken Wilber's theory, integral theory, is a whole system, a holistic system of many theories. It's a meta theory that combines many theories of how human beings evolve psychosocially. And there's a whole color-coded chart of different stages of consciousness. And this is just a very, very important and useful subject, or useful map, let me say, that I highly recommend to anybody. Just use your AI program, whatever you're using, and ask it to give you a summary of integral theory and spiral dynamics, which is included inside integral theory, and is a simpler system because there's not as many moving parts to spiral dynamics. You could start with spiral dynamics, and you get to understand different frames of mind, different states of consciousness that different peoples have gone through or are still going through today, and where you're going and where you are, where your center of gravity is. And of course, all these stages, you don't outgrow these stages. What Ken Wilber says is you transcend them, but you include them. Just like you do when you're developing as a child. You don't lose the infant. You don't lose the 3-year-old, the 7-year-old, the adolescent. You don't lose those. They get tucked into higher systems, and they get integrated into those systems. This is why you can have a complex that can get triggered and devolve you down to one of these earlier stages. And you'll say, wow, I didn't know what came over me. I just devolved down into a child. It's because those structures are still within you. So, but this meta theory is just very, very helpful. And when you're deeply dedicated to the inner work path and to inner development, to maturing yourself, it's a really useful tool that we have now, or just map even, that we didn't have before, that we've never had in all of history. The Buddhists didn't have it, the alchemists didn't have it, nobody had this. And now we have this integral theory. And so it's just an amazing thing. So I highly recommend it to you. Second tier is basically the way it's described here. I actually think I may have, because I've talked about integral theory and spiral dynamics multiple times on this show. Let me look through here and see if I have the image of that map. Boom, 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 boom. No, I don't think I have it in here right now. But the way I'm going to talk about this today is not going to be like a lesson format like I've done before. I'm just going to talk about this in a more general way, so we don't need the map. And there's a lot of other things that I'm going to talk about that are related to this. But basically, the second tier or integral stage of consciousness is the first stage of consciousness that human beings can think from and act from, where they can actually in a real visceral way, they can tune in to the consciousness of different people at different stages, in different cultures, at different ages, different cultures, different religions. You can tune into those people and you can actually understand where they're coming from and not be triggered by them, not be triggered by their beliefs, not be triggered by their behaviors. And you can recognize, hey, okay, I understand. You come from a certain place, a certain environment, a certain stage of development that is ubiquitous across all of humanity. That's where you're coming from. I can go down into that and I can speak your language and I can work with you at this stage. And then you can go over to somebody else or in another culture and you can say, okay, I can go into where you're at and I can work with you at your stage. And you don't have you're not triggered by anybody's stage thinking, oh, well, you're primitive and you're not, and all of this. You recognize that it's a holarchy. And this is the first stage of consciousness where you can be a systems thinker like that. And not just be able to think, because there's a lot of people who might study integral theory. If you just have a little bit above average intelligence, you can study this stuff, integral or spiral dynamics, and you could spit it back out. But are you really at that level, that second tier level? So that's something that you have to evolve through in your own time. That's something that just happens. And different people have a different capacity for a different center of gravity. And there's a small portion of people on planet Earth right now that will naturally, in their lifetime, they will gravitate up to these higher stages of psychosocial consciousness at some point in their life, and they'll stabilize there. And right now it's a very small amount of people, but it looks like it's, the people who have been mapping this have been seeing that number increase. So, it was very optimistic when Don Beck and those folks from Spiral Dynamics said that 1% of the human population was at second tier. That's overly optimistic. But it's possible that it will be 1% in my lifetime, maybe more, maybe 2%, maybe 3%. We'll see. We're going to see what happens. But I've always said that one of the keys to actually getting to a higher level like this is the ability, or is the requirement, let me say, that you process enough of your shadow material. It's like there's a moat that to get across to second tier, to integral stage or flex flow or whatever they call it in spiral dynamics, there's a moat of shadow material there. And it may be that there's a moat of shadow material in between every stage. But there's definitely a moat going into second tier. And so this is where what we do here comes in. This is where the alchemy comes in. This is where the shadow work comes in. And so if you just commit yourself to the work, to the great work, to the inner development, and you just always are willing, I remember when I first started really getting serious about working on myself, even before I had my big crash, I remember probably not being super serious yet, but getting there sometime in my late 20s, maybe early 30s. And I remember I was starting to kind of catalog. I guess I was kind of on my path at that point, because I was starting to catalog, at least mentally, my shadow material. Before I had any system or anything like that, I was at least going, okay, what's this and what's this? And there were things that were on the list that I realized at the time, I don't think I can go into that right now. There were certain fears, insecurities, fears, material that I didn't feel like I was ready to go into. But I recognized right there that I said, if I'm going to put this off, it's eventually going to have to be gone through. I'm eventually going to have to go through this. There's no putting it off for good. I recognized that right away or early on. So as long as you have an attitude like that even if you're not, absolutely doing everything that you can to integrate your shadow material, you're cataloging it, and what's on the list, or at least some of what's on the list, and that you'll be going into that material. And then as you get older and you get more experience and more capacity, then you actually do go on into those things and you do process that material. So if you do that, if you have that kind of alchemical ethic, then you're going to go far. And the more people that have that kind of ethic more people are gonna actually make it into second tier, not just being able to talk about it, but being able to be there. And another thing I want to say about this is that in that system, the highest tier of consciousness, people will recognize this when I describe it. The highest tier, that's the highest stage in first tier, before you get to this systems thinking that I was talking about, and systems being. Before you get there, you're in the green stage, they describe it. And the green stage is the egalitarian stage. It's the sensitive self stage. It's a feminine stage, right? So if you look at America and the modern West, you can see the last few stages. You saw the monotheistic Christian world, right? That's blue in spiral dynamics, or amber in integral. You saw that. It's authoritarian. It says this is the only way. It's this way or no way. And all the monotheistic religions are like that. And it was very orderly. And so there was an authoritarian aspect to it, but there was also a lot of order and duty and responsibility and the ability to handle suffering, or the virtue in handling suffering, and austerity, and the virtue in austerity. And so there were virtues in that, but it was also, very restrictive. And then we had the modern mindset, the orange stage in spiral dynamics, or what is it? I think it's also orange in integral. And that's the modern rationalist world. And that broke up to a great degree the religious thinking and the church and the whole Christian mindset. The whole Christian operating system really got cracked when you had the scientific rationalism and all of everything that came through out of the Enlightenment. And the values of America, for example, that then fed back to Europe, but America really stood them up first. That very individualistic kind of can-do spirit, and then the dark side of it too, the me culture and the narcissism and all that. But it's all about what I can do and my potential and what humans can do, and the myth of progress and all of this. That's the orange stage. And, and people, Westerners are very familiar with that stage. And now we've become familiar with the green stage. And the green stage is more where Europe is than America. America tries to fake it. And they're like, yeah, we're into environmentalism, we're into feminism, we're into sensitivity and all this, but it's a cover story. It's a fake reality TV version. like everything that comes out of America now. And the Europeans, especially people like the Dutch or the Scandinavians, but especially the Dutch, they're naturally, no, Scandinavians too, they're really naturally in this stage. They're really naturally in this stage of fairness and egalitarian values and being sensitive and equality of genders and sexes and all of this, but in a liberal values, but in a very genuine way that's really in their DNA. It's not just a cover. And that's the green stage. But the problem with the green stage is it doesn't like it's very sensitive to boundaries and order and the old patriarchal way, right? So you see this with all the progressives and everything, and they're dismantling the patriarchy and the postmodern deconstructionism and all that kind of stuff. That's all coming out of this green stage. And so it's got shadow side, and it's got light and shadow, like everything. And when you like, for example, if you're in America, for example, and you're looking at those values and they're being thrown on you and forced onto you in some shadow version, some woke version, and you're looking at that, you're going, God, get this away from me, right? And so you wouldn't want to, go do some kind of, sensitive circling exercises down at the yoga studio or whatever, right? But the thing about it is that, and if you do go to those places, if you do go down to the sensitive circling, workshop down at the yoga studio, and you integrate with those people and you see what's going on, you're going to meet some great people, and you're going to meet some very kind, loving, empathetic people. But you're also going to realize that they have a very hard time with order and boundaries and getting shit done and all of that. And so again, it's easy to want to throw that out and be like, whatever, what is this stuff, this, pussy stuff. And, but I have to tell you that you have to go through that stage, and you have to do that to get to second tier, to get to this more masculine, problem-solving, holistic mindset and way of being. You have to integrate that feminine, sensitive self. And in Jungian psychology, you could say a related way to put this is that you have to. A man, for example, has to integrate his anima, his feminine side, because women will naturally, generally, not all, women with strong animuses, strong masculinity, might not like that kind of sensitive self-culture. And but men, they have to develop their anima, their femininity, and it's like there's no getting around it, really. You just can't get to this higher level of consciousness without getting through that. And I've been working with this and studying this and using myself as a guinea pig on this for about 20 years. I've been aware of this conception and been testing it and been working through that in my own life. And I've kind of gone in and out of those communities and been turned on by them and turned off by them. And I've done all this work, as some of you know, with Melissa, all this alchemical work, all this shadow work and anima integration work and all of this. And now I'm part of this community at this location in Austin, this Casa de Luz village. And it's very much this green, sensitive self-culture. And I know it very well. But I'm not in green, I'm in second tier. I have plenty of green in me, but I'm able to kind of sit above this. And so I can go into this community I'm really finally able to really, I'm just able to see the light side and the dark side without idolizing or being triggered by either of those, the genius of it or the shadow of it. And so, that's taken a lot of work to get there, and a lot of kind of trial and error and practice, and a lot of working on myself to get there. And for those people who naturally are more sensitive and naturally have more kind of feminine capacities, using your intuition, being very conscious of relational energies, being very egalitarian in communication, and these kinds of values, people that naturally come up that way, what they're going to work through, they're in green, and they're going to have to work through these lower stages. Like, I didn't talk about the red level, which is like the tribal warfare, power dynamics, might makes right kind of energy, that uses aggression. And that's a very big turnoff for people who grow up into these more sensitive, usually spiritual kinds of families. They have to work on their masculine energies. So while people who are more comfortable with their masculine energies, men or women, they have to work with their feminine energies. People who are more comfortable with their feminine energies have to work with their masculinity. Whatever's in the shadow, they're going to have to be working with that material. So it's been very interesting, because I haven't been active in any of those green communities I was active in some of them before Melissa came around, so that would have been up to 2013. And then we did our own thing for 12 years. And then when Melissa passed, first I went through this whole, gigantic grieving period. It's still ongoing, of course, but made the movie about her, and I'm doing all kinds of art. I can talk about more, some of that newer art that's coming out. But then I started looking around. I'm in Austin now. I'm like, okay, where's a community I can hang out with? And I found this just incredible place. And the guy that runs this place, the curator or the trustee of this place, let's say, just an amazing individual, just a really lovely human being, and just very generous and lovely. But it's interesting because even he is also very sensitive to order and boundaries and masculine values, even though he ends up having to use them because he has to manage this whole place. So he ends up using them, and then he ends up slapping himself saying, oh man, I don't like the way I sound. He has to stand up and bring order and masculinity into his business. And then he's like, oh my God, I don't want to sound like that. I want to be all open and sensitive and compassionate and caring. So this is where you have, material in the shadow. This is where you have, this is where somebody who's already in that green needs to work with these lower stages, these more masculine stages. But this is the work, or this is I'm talking around it, but this is sort of the topology of it all. So it's been, so let me just say a little bit more about that. And so there's been some changes going on over there in the way that place is organized and certain things, and I've been part of the conversation, and it's been very, very interesting to watch myself go into that green community from where I am now, with the experience that I have with Melissa, and then the earlier experience I had with green communities before, and studying the integral theory and spiral dynamics and really pulling it apart, studying it for all these years and everything. And now I'm getting to test, like, where's my consciousness at when I plunk myself down into one of these green communities where they're really solid green in a very pure and beautiful way. It's not fake. The people who are in, this is not a woke thing. These are the real green people, like what I was saying about the Dutch. You know, they're Americans here mainly, but they're not all Americans. There's still a lot of South Americans and people from all over, really, but these are real, true green people in a very genuine way. And so going into that community and being like, okay, so, you know, how do we communicate? What's comfortable, what's not comfortable, where's the genius, where's the shadow, and all of this. And it's like, it's pretty darn cool, to tell you the truth, how, because of all the work I've done and the anima integration work that I've done, that I can go into this community and I can literally communicate with people and be with people in a way that I never could do before, couldn't have done 10 years ago. I was having to tiptoe around, when I was in these communities earlier. Now, because of all this work I've done with Melissa, now it's like I can really feel the feminine energy, the energy of feminine communication and feminine being in men and women. And I'm past that stage where a lot of men are, where they just, the way women are, the way women communicate, the way women lead with their feelings is just alien to them. And they're just naturally react to that, and they're like, where's your order? Where's your logic? Where and why aren't you getting to the point? And they just don't get the feminine way of being, and they don't see it, they don't feel it, and they don't see the value in it. They don't recognize metaphysically even what this is the zero metaphysically. They're all in the one, and they're not able to recognize that actually all novelty and everything that they would call evolution is coming out of the zero. And the one is just taking it and writing it off to where it needs to go. But they're not at that stage, and so they're very reactive to femininity and to feminine ways of communicating and being. I'm past that now. I'm like, okay, I've integrated that. I know what that's all about. I have that kind of sensitivity and that kind of awareness. So now I can go into those spaces and I can plunk myself down there, and people just naturally, I can just run that program, right? When you're in second tier, you can just run the program you need to run to go into whatever community or relationship you need to. And nobody's going to be perfect at that. Everybody's still going to have some shadow material, some residual that's going to be popping up, right? But to the degree that you can do that, at least, have some competence there, that shows where you're at. And so I'm like testing myself, and I'm like, wow, okay, good job, Colin. Good job, Colin and Melissa. We really took this, we really, the alchemy worked. Of course, there's so much more work to do, but it's great to see actual psychospiritual progress, in the world, in relationship. And then I can go into that community and I can resonate at their frequency. I can turn my TV channel to their channel, and then we can be simpatico, and then I can come in from there with some higher level stuff, or I can point back down to the shadow stuff, and they're comfortable, and it's like, because I can navigate the whole thing. So it's a really beautiful thing, and it makes me realize how absolutely necessary it is to go through green. You can't skip green. You can't get into second tier without green. And if you're in green and you're all shadowy in green and you still have all kinds of passive aggressiveness or crappy work ethic, or the inability to order your life, and you know, you don't have, you're so in green that your masculine consciousness is all out of order. Well, you're gonna have to work on that. Just because your natural center of gravity is in green and you're comfortable there, and it's, even if it's genuine, you still can't get to second tier until you work out this shadow material, because it will always be dragging you back down to red, dragging you back down to blue, dragging you down to these lower levels. And so that's where the inner work comes in. That's where the shadow work comes in. So I think right there, I think I kind of gave you an explanation. I didn't talk, about, I didn't, crack open the whole integral theory or spiral dynamics. I just kind of focused in on that green area, and I gave you personal examples from my own life to kind of give you a feeling for what this stage is, and what it means to integrate that stage, and to be able to get beyond that. So I think that's good. See where we are now, 8:40. Let's see if Stephanie, are you in here? Let's see if Stephanie's in. I think maybe I'll talk for another 20 minutes or something like that, 30 minutes, and then maybe if she's here, we'll bring her in. Of course, if anybody else has any comments, go ahead and leave them, and we'll talk. Hi, Theo, how you doing? Oh, you love the song in the intro. Yeah, that's called Shedding the Skin from the 01 Experience. 01experience.com. That was our band. And that song was not recorded that wasn't on the EP. That version that you have there was the demo version that we just used, the pre-production demo version, and the graphics were what we projected on the screen behind our live show. At some point, because I have all the original tracks, on the songs that never did get professionally recorded, I'm gonna record those. I'm gonna get probably Carter Kennedy, our original drummer, go to California, record some drums and stuff, and use, because the vocal tracks are good enough that, even if you're just singing handheld mic, but still high quality enough to release professionally. So I'll do that at some point in the future. That's going to happen. But oh, hi, Steph. Okay, so all right, I'll call you in a little bit. I'm just going to go through my notes here. So I have some other stuff here. This Casa de Luz place is giving me content. It's good. It's giving me life experience and content. There are some people that have been showing up there. See, what's going on over there is the owner, Wyo. He has created this space, this conversation space. It's a whole. It's called a village, Casa de Luz Village, and it's a restaurant and a number of retail establishments, a yoga studio, and some. It's all like oriented around holistic, healing and spirituality and stuff. And he opened up this conversation lounge, the Thought House, the Singularity Thought House. And people have been coming through there. And the way he started it is he just wanted it to be for people to just sit down, meet each other, and just have high-level conversations. And it's been amazing. It's been working. Unfortunately, it's been losing a lot of money, and so we got to figure that out. I mean, I think we've already kind of figured that out. But it's been a magnet for some high consciousness people at different levels of development and maturity, but high consciousness, natural people who are on the path. And there's been a handful of people who I've met there who I think are brilliant people, younger than myself, brilliant people, just naturally, in many ways. Like, I'm thinking of one young man, he's like 20, very high IQ, extremely self-reflective, but full of all kinds of complexes that he's working through, like we all had, right? Like most of us had. And so, but through listening to his conversation, and a couple of other people too, more than two, several other people, I was able to recognize that when you have this natural talent to be able to see through the movie of life, see through the Maya projection, and you start to see the relationship between synchronicities, you see the relationship between what's going on inside yourself and what's going on outside of yourself. When you have this natural alchemical, I would say, or just mystic capacity, and especially when it turns on early in life, and you have this, but you haven't built the discernment yet to recognize how far can you go in that direction, then you can really stumble. Because when you've had traumas, when you've had childhood traumas, difficult childhoods, or you're a sensitive person, on the outside, or in just some way sensitive, or you had a near-death experience or spiritual emergency or some kind of trauma, or you inherited your parents' or ancestors' trauma and it's like running through you, and you may have a little bit more permeable ego membrane, let's say. Your ego, your consciousness. If you look at it like a cell with a membrane, that membrane may be more permeable than the average person. And that's what gives you some of your mystic, some of your shamanic capacities, your ability to be able to see things other people can't see, or make connections other people can't make. So that's a talent, that's a genius, that's a gift. But when you have that semi-permeable ego, it's very easy for your consciousness, for your ego to try to make sense out of things that don't need to be made sense out of. How do you discern which synchronicities, which relationships matter and which ones don't? How do you discern, oh, well, I saw that license plate and it said something, or it had a certain number on it, and then I turned on YouTube and I saw that same symbol, or I saw that same number. Is that a synchronicity? Does that matter? Should I tie those together? Or, somebody said something at work and then I heard my parents say it or whatever, and then what does that mean? And what I always tell you guys is that asking the question, what does this mean, is the primary question for living in the movie, so to speak, right? For living the life of a sacred life artist, as I would say these days, right? For living that kind of, that mystic shamanic way of living and seeing and perceiving. And it's very powerful. It's a very numinous way to live, and you can create amazing art, and you can have a very stimulating life that way, very meaningful, stimulating life that way. And it's very alchemical. But when you go just another click beyond just the level of a talented artist, then you move into the schizophrenic. You move into the psychotic. And I have been meeting people who are still trying to figure out, where, because of their semi-permeable ego membrane, where do you draw the line with applying meaning to things that are related in your movie. And I think for, when I was with Melissa, Melissa would, like a lot of women, be more open and have more kind of capacity to do that, have that kind of mystic capacity. But then not just any woman, but she was also a woman with special talents in that way, for sure. And so, if it wasn't for me having a more rigid ego boundary, then if exploring this material, especially using psychedelics or anything like that, or marijuana or anything like that, you could really, go into chaos. And so I have that kind of very kind of conscientious, ordered kind of mindset. And that's how I can, do law and engineering and, write books about psychology and stuff and put things into categories and, make order out of things. I have that capacity, that logos capacity. And so it was a good match with us. Because she could take me more into the mystic and I could bring her back more into logic, and we could find a middle ground there. But so when you don't have somebody to kind of give you that kind of guidance or give you that kind of example, then it can be dangerous. It can be dangerous, especially, like I said, if you're using substances and stuff. And I'm meeting people who I think are really kind of, really walking the line there. And like I was telling Stephanie the other night, that a lot of young people, or just a lot of people now, that in our culture now, we're moving out of the pedagogical mindset. People don't want to be taught what to do. They don't want lessons. They don't want to read books. They don't want to take tests. They don't want that anymore. They want to just scroll, find people, take in a little this here, take in a little that there, and just sort of make their own deal. And that's part of the green consciousness too, for sure. But the issue is that it's gonna be very slippy and very slidey, and not everybody's gonna make it. Some people are just this, and this is actually well known. This is well known that people who go the shamanic path, they don't all make it to be elders because they crack up. So it's something I've been noticing, and it's something that is very worth keeping in mind and talking about and thinking about. And so I do whatever I can to try to orient these folks to whatever degree they will listen to me. Okay, so I think I talked I'm looking at my notes here, and a lot of these subjects I covered already. I think there was just a couple other things on here, and I'll call Stephanie. We were talking, maybe we'll bring it up, or I don't know, but we were talking about there's on social media. I'm not using social media that much. I have an X account, I have a Facebook account. I have accounts all over the place, but I don't really use them. The only ones I really use I use X, and I kind of just use it maybe a couple times a day. I kind of check in and see if there's anything there. And Facebook, I probably check in once, maybe once or twice a day too. If I've put something out, sometimes I put stuff on there, and then, I'm responsible and I'll follow through and see if people are commenting and have a conversation. But if I'm not really posting, I'll just kind of check it, see if my messages, or if I have any messages, and get on out of there, because I'm just really not, I'm not going to use social media as a substitute community. It's just, that stinks. I'm not going to do that. So, but I do, have, because of that, I do have some people who are, Jungians and other spiritually minded people who I think are valuable, and they're in the community one way or another. And, so I post on their stuff, when I see it from time to time. And it's been interesting because what I was telling Stephanie earlier, and she knows all about this, that when there's a lot in the spiritual community, in the Jungian community, in the psychological community, in any of these kind of communities, the majority of people are seekers. They're just trying to figure it out. They're trying to say, what makes sense? What sticks for me? Where am I at in this whole field? We've all been there. We're all still seekers. We're all seekers. It means student, really. And so we're students, we're seekers. And then there's people who are doing something that's more on the pro side. They're doing some kind of service. They're an author, they're a podcaster, they're a blogger. They're some kind of they're doing something in these domains. And so they're, if they're podcasting, which is popular now, they're interviewing people, or a lot of people are, writers, and prolific writers. They're writing stuff about, psychospirituality or whatever. So all that's out there. But what I've noticed is that when I comment on those people's stuff, I recognize often very quickly the big disconnect, because the majority of people who are talking about psychospiritual progress, psychospiritual development, are studying it, and they're doing it to whatever degree. But if you're seeing them every day on posting and writing articles and all of that kind of stuff, they're more on the talking about it level than they are on the doing it level. And there's that old saying that those who can't do teach. and so I come into those kinds of conversations and I lay out what my experience is. I talk from experience. It's like I just told you about spiral dynamics and integral theory and green stage, and I showed you what my experience is, actually using that and working through those stages in actual life. But 90% of the people who talk about integral theory and spiral dynamics are just reading books and spitting it back out. Or the Jungian community. They're reading Carl Jung. They're idolizing Carl Jung. He's their Jesus Christ. And they've fallen back into this kind of parent-child relationship. And, and he's the infallible parent. He's the Christ. And it's all about just imbibing his energy and reading his quotes and re-quoting him, and here's what he said and how wise he is and all this kind of stuff. And it's all great because he was a freaking amazing human being. Just a very, very rare, really, 1,000 years from now, people probably call him a saint, or an ascended master, or whatever phrase they're going to put on it. But that's how advanced and important he is. But the thing is that what Carl Jung was doing was just an advanced version of what is available to maybe not all of us, but a lot more of us. It's what me and Melissa were doing. It's what Stephanie's doing. What she did with her boyfriend. And there are people, the alchemists, the real ones, who are doing the work. They might be talking about it too, but they're really doing it. And then it's like you have people who are really doing the work, and they're kind of in their hermitage, and you don't really know about them. They're not on YouTube blabbing about it. They're just, being introverts and just being mystics. And that's one path. It's really important, valid path. but you don't really know about those people that much. You just kind of have to meet them by accident or by synchronicity. And but then there's the relational alchemists, and these are more rare apparently. I didn't, I just figured it out. Me and Melissa, we figured it out. We just were pulled to that. That's what we're doing. And then when we looked around in the world and like who else is doing this, what other couples are doing this, it's like, where are they? Can't find them. So there's, handful that I'm aware of. But to me, that's the highest level of doing this. Because when you're all by yourself, you're just like, you don't have somebody to trigger your complexes, right? So how are you going to work out all your relational shadow material, all your attachment pathology? How are you going to work that out without a partner? And then I see people who do have partners, and they talk, and they put out stuff, but I'm not seeing where their relational alchemy stuff is. Where's the talk and the creativity that comes out of the relationship? I'm not seeing that. So when I interface with folks who were talking about all this stuff, I'm like, I find that there's kind of a natural kind of disconnect, and a lot of times they just ignore me. Stephanie and I were talking about this, and they just ignore me, and they're just like, okay, it's like Carl Jung, he's the master, he's the only one. There's no way that you're doing the same thing that he was doing. No way. That can't be true. There's no way, you could be at his level. And I don't think I am at his level, but I'm doing the same thing he did. And very definitely. And there's a lot of us that I'm looking for them. I know we're out there. There's a lot more than just, Carl Jung. So, but even Carl Jung did not express the alchemical partnership as this, he did not really define the boundaries and the dynamics of the alchemical relationship. He didn't really go in that direction that much, at least in what he shared with the public. It was more of a solo thing, and he had his relationships and stuff, and alchemy was happening, but it wasn't as well worked out. And so yeah. So anyway, I think that's all. I think I'm going to call. Can I call you Stephanie? I'm going to call Stephanie. And Mike, she says, am I correct in that Jung actually resisted the women in his life poorly? It may not have landed. Oh. It may not have landed relationship for, I don't know what that is, but what is the Carl Jung had his wife Emma. She was a psychologist too, but she was kind of in his shadow, or that's not the right word. She did her stuff. She wrote books too, but she was taking care of the family and all of that. It was kind of a traditional kind of European family in that way. This is the early, 20th century. And then he had at least one mistress, Tony Wolfe, and at least one. He also had women that he had platonic relationships with who worked on his property and worked on projects for him. And did, his research assistants. And he had quite a number of those over the years. And I don't think he's having, intimate relationships with most of those, except for Tony Wolfe is the one I know about, and I think most people, or a lot of people, know about. So it was mainly just Emma and Tony. There might have been others, but those were the two. And he did the deeper kind of work with Tony. and Emma knew about Tony. And Tony actually was not allowed on the property, or not allowed to have meals with the family. Other than that, you know, she was working with him and stuff. But let me call you. Let me call you, Stephanie. Okay. Let me try to do this by... How do I do this now? How do I do this? You have to text me at that number, because this is Google Voice and I don't even know how to use it. Where's the keypad? Calls, that, contacts, that, voicemail. Where's the keypad? How does that even work? Maybe I don't need the keypad. Maybe I just call you on my, let me try that. Let's see if that works. I'm gonna try to call you just straight from the normal phone. There she is. Okay. And okay, let me turn off the music. And I'm gonna call you now. Phone. Yeah, I don't need Google Voice.
Hey, Colin.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good.
Good. Yeah, I wrote, isn't it true that Jung treated the women in his life quite poorly? I said, I think what didn't land was actually the healthy relational quality.
Yeah. I'm just not enough of a scholar on Jung, because I meet people like Michael Smith and other Jungians, and who have really, like, you know, been down the Jung rabbit hole. It's almost like being a theologian. There are a lot of
Right.
Jungians that have been a theologian with him, and they've read the collected works, and now they've got access to the black books and the red book, and they know they've been, you know, all the secret stuff, the letters have been released, they've read all the letters, they know all that stuff. I don't know all that stuff. So anyway,
Well, I think
yeah.
what's unique about you and Melissa is that you two were able to maintain a relationship, a live-in monogamous relationship. It seems like my situation kind of included, and others, is that some things hit too hard for the everyday family type of situation, that there needs to be
Yeah.
multiple men or multiple women trying to help process this
Right.
stuff. So I really think that the cutting edge is not having mistresses, not doing things behind people's back, because the whole purpose of evolving to tier 2 is to be able to go as deep with somebody as you possibly can, and not kind of fracture yourself into multiple women to try to get all of this shadow junk integrated.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's difficult. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, even if you, I think if you have integrity on this spiritual path, and you still can't do, like, if you're a man or woman or whatever, you can't do everything you want to do with your wife or husband, with your main partner, and then you bring someone in, and it's known, and it's in the, and it's that at least is honest, but still not the ultimate.
It's not the ultimate. And think of, like you were discussing Tony, is that Emma knew about Tony, but still kind of shamed her away from being a part of the family. So even though Tony had the capacity to really do the work with Jung, I'm sure she didn't feel great about being kind of, you know, on the outskirts of the unit and not feeling included in that way. This is the issue, is that I think when we do a lot of this work, so much maybe potentially shameful things can arise, and that can interfere with this kind of performative life that certain families have, or what keeps the family together. So I just love, you know, how you and Melissa were able to keep it monogamous in your actual dyad. But I also know that we've talked about before that when you do have these kinds of relationships, they're almost so fulfilling that you become more isolated from the public.
Yeah.
So that's another issue, is
do.
that, kind of
Oh,
it seems
yeah,
like
that
the
was
highest
yeah.
goal, like the highest goal might be to be able to maintain a monogamous relationship and be in an alchemical relationship, and to get the proper feedback from the people, that's really what an alchemical relationship is, having the feedback loop just be on point. Like, you just are both very in sync. But then to also not get so overwhelmed by the incredible awesomeness of the relationship that you're still really interacting with the public domain too.
Yeah, our relationship was pretty insular, and I think part of that was Melissa's personality and her because I think if Melissa had been a little more, her extroversion was sort of reserved for the stage.
Right,
and so she gets
right.
on stage and she's an extrovert times 10. But then
Right.
in her normal life, she's pretty introverted and kind of traditional with her relationship, and kind of she wasn't real. We didn't tend to do a lot of. We did a lot of traveling and a lot of nature hikes and we did all kinds of stuff together. But it wasn't that social. It was just us. It was a very insular kind of relationship, and it was very stimulating and very powerful. And so it was great. I didn't need to go outside of it. I didn't care. I didn't need to. But it was like, we didn't have a community because of that.
Let me ask you a question. What do you think the role is of a social community if you're already getting like the most advanced reflections, and if you're getting like so much of your needs met through a relationship? Like, what is the function of social relationships? Because a lot of people, I think, they feel like they need to be a part of a community, but part of that is really because they need the reflections. They need the multitude of perspectives to be able to open their mind.
Yeah, well, you're not getting a multitude of perspectives if it's just you and your partner. You're getting one other perspective, and then you end up learning how to navigate very well inside of that, and you can't really get shocked. And so you go into the outer community, that's going to trigger your junk that your partner isn't triggering, or it's going to be, it's just you. Also, just the sense that you're part of the world,
right?
And that you're offering something. It's one thing. It's like, what if you have a job? What if you work? What if you and your husband have an auto shop, and you work at the counter, and you're like, 100 people a day are coming in, and you meet the community that way because everybody gets their car repaired there, or you sell. You have a cafe or whatever it is, or yoga studio like you had, and you're meeting the community and all of that. That's good for you. It's good for the community. They need what you have. That's another thing, is that if you're being very advanced and doing this kind of work, and then no one else gets to meet you and talk to you, that's like you're depriving them of something that they should have that. Right?
Yeah, I think a lot of people who are on this path become very private and very they insulate themselves from the world because they're excavating all of this difficulty within themselves, that they become so triggerable from the outside world. And that's where we see those terms like, I'm a super empath and I can't be around anybody. But really the goal is to develop, as you and I were talking about earlier, to be able to develop the capacity to be in the world without being so dysregulated by it and triggerable by it.
Yeah. I was very sensitive, and I still have that kind of sensitivity, but I have to kind of, put on a little bit of psychic armor when I go out in the world. And I hear this a lot now. I never heard this with prior generations, but people talking about their sensitivities and how that they're having, they're always, it's just it's kind of like, I don't know, I was talking to Wyo, the over at the Casa de Luz, and he was talking about the work ethic he thought it was Anglos. And I'm like, I don't know if it's really Anglos, because you bring a German in here or something to work for you, they're going to be a good worker. But the Americans have such crappy work ethic, and they're so, feel like you said it the other day, it just feels so privileged. And one of the things they're using to sort of deflect from responsibility is, oh, I'm too sensitive, I can't do that, oh, I can't smell those smells, I can't breathe that air, I can't be in that environment, oh, it's too hot, it's too soft, it's too this, it's too that. It's like what was it? What was the myth of the fairy the Grimm's fairy tale of the princess and the pea?
Oh yeah.
The bed's too hard or the bed's too soft.
Right. And I think, one thing that you also brought up about this highly sensitive issue that we're facing, there could be a reality that we're starting to move beyond just the awareness of the five senses, and things are opening that's creating an awareness that feels like sensitivity. But also you see people that you were discussing earlier who are kind of maybe in the beginning stages of green, where they're super open and they're super sensitive, and then they can get a little bit disassociated and kind of ascend above logic and reason. And then in some ways I've seen people say, I'm overly sensitive right now for some reason, instead of kind of like investigating maybe where that's coming from. Right. It then gets turned into like a superpower. Like, oh, I've discovered now that I'm clairsentient and I'm claircognizant and I'm a psychic, and it's like it almost, we can take these things that are in ways like invitations for a deeper gift and hijack it too soon and not do the real work that it takes to ground the skill appropriately. And that's when, like you in the yoga community, I was seeing a lot of people working on their ascension and becoming a little bit psychotic. Like they were going too far out, and they weren't tethered to anything on the ground. And it can be very appealing because it becomes very magical, it becomes very psychic, it becomes very, I'm a witch, I'm a magician, and it's just, it becomes almost like a very high level fantasy. And it's not that those skills aren't available, but when we hijack them without more work and wisdom, it actually takes you on a tertiary path away from where you actually want to go. And then you find communities who are just locked up in that holon. Then people spend 10, 20, 30, or even years just lost in kind of a disassociative fantasy state of their enlightenment.
Especially if you have a family with wealth and you don't really have to be in the worker bee world. You can just kind of float. You can float, or the opposite is if you're struggling with your sensitivities and you're in poverty mindset, and it's like you're at home in these states, that can also deter you from just going to get a job if you need to. You need money to live. Then you're just what you're going to do is you're going to find some description for what kind of pathology you have out of the DSM or whatever, and go on disability or whatever. That's happened very often too. I think a lot of people that have these chronic illnesses that are, most all chronic illnesses have some sort of mental health or mental illness component to them. And I think obviously we're over-diagnosing everything. Because nobody has really built, I guess we have lots of maps, lots of psychological maps, but I was watching a video with Ken Wilber today, and he was saying it's really only the last 100 years in our entire civilization that people are focusing on cleaning up. He talks about waking up and growing up, but he's saying it's only the last 100 years that people are making maps regarding how do we actually clean up our shadow material and become conscious in relationship. Like we have been talking about lately, sending
my male friend a text message and really naming all of my shadow projection that I've been putting out there on him for a very long time, that goes all the way back to my childhood and even my epigenetics and my lineage. Like, if you're not able to clean up, I think that's where everybody kind of has to focus now, because if you're not cleaning up, you're just repeating.
Yeah, no, it's a very good point. He's right about that. There's been, well, especially in the West, there's no cleanup. In the East, there's been more cleanup. But yeah, it's like now we didn't have the tools for it. It's very new, and so it's coming along slowly. But yeah, it's and what you're saying about your friend, it's like you put on the table you recognized your own shadow projections, and you put those on the table, and you said, okay, now this is grist for the mill, this is prima materia, this is stuff to work with now. And so and we're going to kind of see how that goes, but this is what it's all about. It's like, okay, let me go down there, let's see what's plugging up the plumbing, and let's pull it out, and let's get dirty and get into the dirt with this and clean up. And yeah, it's not in our Christianity. We're it's not in Judeo-Christian. It's not in any of the Western monotheistic religions. The cleaning
it's
up.
Very actively discussed to not do any dark shadow work.
No.
It's stay in the light, and
just project onto other people. The evil's
project,
out there. Go get the evil out there, but don't look for it in yourself. Yeah, that's our
or
system.
do the same thing that we were talking about with the shadow of the spiritual community is the same exact shadow of the religious community, which is I'm going to be very imbalanced actually in my feminine aspect, and I'm going to have all faith and absolutely no will, and be very maybe not take right action and repeat cycles that are actually quite unconscious.
So being in your which community? You're talking about the Christian community?
I'm talking about right now I was specifically talking about the aggregate of the Christian community very actively discourages anybody from looking at their shadow. Like that's just a no. We don't do that.
Satan, get behind me.
Right. Satan's going to come. That's Satan. Right. I said to somebody the other day, I went out to lunch with a Christian friend of mine, and I love Christianity. That I really love it. It's just, I love it all, but it's just the individuals within the organization can be complicated. But yeah, he actively, I went out with a friend of mine, and he actively, said, I was telling him like, oh, my ego sometimes, gets active and activated. And he looked at me and he grabbed my hand and he said, do you know what your ego is? It's Satan. It's Satan.
Oh,
ego
is
so
Satan.
he like, I was looking at him and just observing him and actually being able to read where his psyche is at in the moment. And I could really sense his like kind of exhaustion and all of, his helping with other people and his own imbalance in his own psyche, projecting onto me, almost asking unconsciously like for help, that he was so imbalanced. But again, when you don't take responsibility and you try to pray away things that need an active participatory realization about, you're just going to keep repeating and praying and making mistakes and sinning and repeating and sinning and repeating and sinning and repeating. And we continue to sin and repeat, but there is a definite treasure in this work. And you and I was sharing that little video I made right before we, you hopped on your podcast. And basically, the work of being in an unconscious relationship and being in a conscious relationship is the same. And it might even be harder if you're in a conscious relationship. But the fruits of the labor and having these realizations and really being able to go many years and do this work and evolve, there is just absolutely no doubt of the incredible benefit to yourself, to your relationship, and to humanity if you take the very long necessary life journey and clean up your own shadow and be able to be humble enough to be like, it's taken me 10 years, but here is succinctly my projection onto you from my wounds. Like it's just the fruits of this work. It's not fruits of labor like, look at my car, or look at how much money I make a year, or look at my material accumulated things. It's an inner realization that it makes every single suffering in this lifetime worthwhile because it means something.
It's an inner security of knowing that I'm on the path, that I'm still flawed, I still suffer, I still have problems, I still have things ahead of me I'm going to need to work on, but that it's an inner satisfaction that you're doing everything you can to mature your soul, to mature your relational field, to clean up, and so that you're not dumping onto other people unconsciously, and you feel a sense of accessing your own, first of all, accessing your own genius more easily, and then you have a sense of that I'm on truly the righteous path. You know, the Christian or the other religious individual is talking about the righteous path as you know, following this scripture or whatever. But this is the real righteous path. I mean, this is the most righteous path you can walk. And it feels amazing to know that you're committed to that and it's working.
It's hard to persuade, convince, explain to somebody why they should commit to this lifestyle. And it's interesting because I agree, and I've heard people in the spiritual self-help space as of late have an argument with an obsession with healing yourself, right? People will be like, oh, you're obsessed with healing and you're never good enough to live your life. You're obsessed with healing. And what I'll say is, what we're doing isn't an obsession with healing, actually.
No.
It's a different philosophy. What we're doing is, in every moment of our lives, taking radical self-accountability, and we're able to analyze our actions to the degree where when we do discharge junk into the world, we have the ability to face ourselves pretty quickly, and then to be able to at least go out and clean up the mess that we've made.
Right.
And so that's really the summation of what we're doing, is we're taking a vow, creating a devotion to spilling as little junk into the world as possible. And not many people even understand what we mean when we talk about this.
No.
And that doesn't mean we're not perfect. Again, it's taken me 10 years of relating with my male friend, to get very clear and succinct and brave enough to just be like, these have been my projections onto you. It's taken a long time.
Yeah.
But at least I've done it. At least I'm holding myself accountable in all of my relationships to say, this is where I could have done better. This is what I'm working on. And that doesn't necessarily change someone else I'm in relationship with. Sometimes it's kind of a stalemate where I'm holding a ground. There is a separation period because I'm spilling my heart on the table, and maybe they're not yet ready to take accountability, and they want to keep projecting darkness into the field. So sometimes there is a necessary, I love you, but I need to take some space.
That's
because
true.
I think we've learned that we can't force anybody to look at themselves. We can't force anybody to awaken. We can't force anybody to heal. So the alternative is to say, like, I'm here in love and truth. And when you're ready to kind of hold that space of being open-hearted and just talk talk about the truth and open up, like I'm here, but I'm also not going to continue to be a punching bag for somebody who's just unwilling to look at their own part in something.
Well, yeah, you don't. Yeah, people ask me on this show, what do I do when I'm into all this, but my partner isn't, and I just say, well, if you are doing this work, you're studying yourself, you're applying some kind of system, internal family systems, whatever it is you're doing, and you're doing this, well, then keep doing what you're doing, and then just start talking to your partner about it, and just keep throwing it on it, and just you become the alchemist, and then your partner is now living with an alchemist, and an alchemist talks about alchemy and working on themselves and attachment theory and all whatever it is you're into. You're watching YouTube videos about it, you're reading those books, you're going to be bringing that up in conversations, and they're either going to start to pick it up with you, or they're going to walk out the door on their own. You don't have to kick them out.
Yeah, you know what, that's it. This is very important in terms of relationships, because there's a huge movement of family estrangement and relationships breaking up. And for some reason, we are so adverse to breaking up and divorcing, and the Bible hates divorce, and I'm not a proponent for it. I don't like to see people split up, but I will say that some people outgrow relationships, and if you're a person who's committed to a spiritual path, that's your life philosophy, and you're not going to devolve yourself, or would be very sad if people give up their soul spiritual evolution to be in a lower state of consciousness. I think that does happen, but usually if you're on a spiritual path, you actually don't have to do anything about splitting up relationships. You don't have to make the move. It's just you don't have to make the move. You committing to who you are is going to expose.
That's it.
And either somebody can hang with you or they can't. Maybe they need space and they come back. Like just you being you on the path is going to move the path and move people in and out of your path exactly as it's meant to be. And I think that the thing for the alchemist, and this has been that was a tough lesson for me to learn as a female who has part of that running girl syndrome part of me that wants to just run from anything that's uncomfortable. Part of me realizing early on in my spiritual development was that I thought I had to make moves in terms of my environment. And really what I realized when I matured more, and as I mature, is that that's because there's a fear of lack of control and wanting to control. So really, in reality, when you're on a spiritual path, you just have to be, and the world around you navigates. You don't have to control the world around you. If you're trying to control the world around you, you're still very early in your development.
Well, like your friend said, that's the ego. That's Satan.
Exactly. That is Satan.
That's you turning it over to Satan.
When you're on a spiritual path, and I think where we're at right now is I can't really see an emergent human development way forward that doesn't somehow combine psychology and spirituality. I really believe that psychology is not going to save the day and spirituality is not going to save the day. I think it's spirituality and psychology is actually the relationship of will and faith. It's the action and the kind of intention together.
You're right. It is kind of. The psychology is more masculine, more logos oriented, doing and mapping and stuff, and then the spirituality is more about acceptance and letting go and intuition and
trust and faith and being connected to the higher realms.
Yeah, more feminine.
But we need. We've learned that psychology on its own very often doesn't work. And spirituality on its own becomes very disassociative and also can get crazy and doesn't work. I think the way forward is all about conscious working on conscious relationship, whether it be with yourself, with your own will and faith relationship, with your partner, with the systems we are involved with your environments, is like we kind of need these two things to be in right relationship, because if they're not, I know psychologists who are not spiritual, and I know spiritual religious people who hate psychology, and they're both very imbalanced.
Yeah, no, it's why we call it psycho-spiritual work. And another reason why I like the Jungian system is because it is both. It is psychology and spirituality together. Although I never tell people to worship Carl Jung or to only use that system or anything like that, but it is I think the most well-developed Western system that's new enough to where we can understand the language. You go back to some more ancient 500 or 1500 year old system of inner development, and it's not going to make any sense. You're not going to have all the texts and the translations and all that. But we have 20th century language with Jung and all the Jungians and everything. So it's at least, take it on as a basic framework and then build what you want to build from there. But
I think we have some good modern tools that have caught on a bit, such as IFS,
integral theory,
integral theory to a little degree. But what I will say is that I'm gonna say this, it's not very feminine or appropriate, but Carl Jung is balls to the wall.
Right. That's right.
It is for people who are dead serious.
Right. It is. That's
about evolution.
Right. That's how I am.
And it's still very far and few between.
Yeah.
I see scholars, but I don't see many of these experiential inner alchemists who are willing to not just be scholarly, but be in the subjective.
I know. This is what I was saying earlier.
Subjective experience and get messy and stay in it and just do it. And I think so many people, there are so many steps along this journey to just bail off and to take another road and to get distracted. Like there are so many doorways that can just stop somebody. I think the biggest key, you call it like hold-on jumping. A friend of mine used to say, like, you have to keep popping the bubble of belief that you're in and understand that it's always bigger than that. And if you get stuck in these bubbles, these hold-ons, these belief systems, the longer you swear that that's your identity and that's your belief, that's the rate of evolution. That's actually the time space of evolution that you're going to be on.
That's your box.
Your belief has to be permeable. You just have to be able to be like, look, this is my really fundamental core way that I live, but I'm very, very permeable to learning and experiencing and kind of experiencing these other ways of being, these other people. Otherwise, you just are stuck in one dimension. You're one dimensional.
You get that is a natural thing. When you get to that second tier, you can do that much more easily. But yeah, so I mean, and what you were saying there about, we were talking about this earlier, and I mentioned it, and it was part of our conversation, that most people who are scholars, podcasters, whatever, of inner development by whatever system, whether Jungians or integralists or IFS people or whatever. The IFS people, actually, though, it's not really. Those people are actually doing it. That's why they
seem a little more like
they're doing
green. They seem a little like they're a little bit in green.
They are.
Yeah, they're green and they are doing it. They are subjective experiencers.
Yeah, they're subjective experiencers. So they are doing it, but it's a tool, and it's not there's not a big ideology or a big framework around it like there is with integral or with Jungian. It's just a tool. It's just a single set of tools.
It's a single tool, and the thing with IFS is that it's a fantastic tool. But again, just like when I taught yoga's a tool, and there are people, like you said before, there are people who do and there are people who teach, right? It's like there are people. I think the main difference is that, well, let me say this. When I first was invited by Scott to come on to the podcast with you and Melissa, we had never met each other before, right? And Scott just said, hey, I really think that you'd like this couple. They're very simpatico with what you're saying. And it only took me but a minute to realize whatever this couple is made of, I have the same material within me.
Right, that's true.
I didn't need to take a long time to get to know somebody, and you got to wait years and years until you really knew somebody. There is something in the field or resonance or some sort of compatibility or something that I picked up on immediately. It was like, for some reason, I know you. Yep. It's like, I know whatever you've got, whatever you're doing, I'm doing the same thing. And it was very obvious very quickly. And people who are using tools, I'm happy that they're using tools, yoga, IFS, whatever it may be, to find more inner peace and learn and develop. But a lot of times people are taking tools to feel better and to experience relief, to go back to the wrong situations. Inner alchemy is a complete reorientation of your inner being, which actually reorients your environment. It just requires it's like you were in one reality and dimension and now you're in another. And sometimes it doesn't look totally different on the outside, but sometimes it does. And if you're using tools to find relief, even if that was a healthy tool, not a drug, not a heroin, but it's yoga. But if you're relying on a tool to continue to re-enter a life that you've outgrown, at some point it's going to get uncomfortable.
Yeah, I mean, inner alchemy is a it's not really about just, okay, I feel bad. It's like the modern medical system. You know, I'm experiencing this symptom, or you go to the shrink and you're like, me and my wife, we can't get along on this one subject. We keep having arguments about this thing. Whatever it is, help us figure it out so we can go back to our lives or whatever. This is for people who have, like you were saying, this is for people who have a natural inbuilt drive to evolve themselves, to become a higher consciousness creature, entity. To be, homo bilancia, we called it. To become a balanced person. This isn't a path for somebody who says, "Oh yeah, if I could just access my golden shadow and I could put it out there, then I could be successful and popular." This isn't about, if I do this, then I get this. This is about
sacrifice is really what it's about. You sacrifice a lot for this sort of wisdom.
And I think, though, it's like you're saying, when you met me and Melissa, you just recognized there was something there. And I think it is that way with the alchemists, with all of us, is that we are, I remember the word evolution when I was a kid, or when I was like 16 or 18 or whenever that was. I can't remember when that was. The word evolution, I was like turning it around. I was like, this means something. I'm like, what is this? And I used it for passwords and stuff like that. I was just like, evolution is like built into my DNA. I'm going to evolve myself. It's not about achieving something. It's not about feeling better. It's about evolving myself. That's what it's all about.
And what's very important, what you were just mentioning, is that I've come to realize, and when, working with the public at times and having my yoga studios, is that so many people don't really even understand their capability for personal evolution and change. And they don't really, they get a story of who they are, and they kind of stay stuck in an identity of, oh, well, this is the way my family is, or this is the way I am, and oh, this is my IQ, and this, and they don't really realize human potential. They don't
No.
really value that you can evolve yourself to where you're healthier, your IQ is higher, you develop other awarenesses and
The
perceptions.
relationships are so much deeper and better. That's one of the best things
totally
about it.
better. Yeah. And I think people if you haven't tasted something,
Right.
you don't know what you're working towards. It almost feels like pie in the sky.
Yeah, you never tasted the chocolate mint pie or whatever you've been eating dog food, and you think that's all there is.
That's right. Yep. and the thing is like, that's what this path actually does require in the beginning. It does require blind faith, because you don't know exactly what lies on the other end. You have
That is very true.
This is what my male friend used to say to me. He was like, the relationship was so compelling. It was like, there has to be something that kind of overtakes you, and you have to really understand that I am so compelled by this pull to go down this path, and I don't know what's on the other end, but I am going to trust it. And that's how it starts. That's the invitation. And if you can't get through that blind faith and to devote yourself and not know what's on the other side, not even know if it's going to produce anything at all, if you don't make that sacrifice, it's almost like God, the universe doesn't grant you those little gifts because you're not willing to make a sacrifice. You're not willing to follow the path and trust the process.
It's like, I remember Melissa and I one time, we were talking about our, the metaphysics of faith, and we developed it outside of the Christian system, but we did use the Bible sometimes and use the Christian system sometimes. And I remember like, let's see what the New Testament says about, and I just opened up the New Testament. It was actually a Catholic Bible is what it was, a big old Catholic Bible. I opened it up in the New Testament. I opened it up in Matthew. And I just put my finger down. I think it was Matthew, is it 18:22? I can't remember which one it is. And it's where Peter's walking on water. And Jesus left for a while. He left the disciples there, and they're like, it's getting dark. Where's he at? When's he coming back? And then Peter sees Jesus across the river, or I don't know which river, and the Red Sea or wherever it was, and River Jordan or whatever, and he sees Jesus out there, and Jesus says, "Come to me." And he's like, "Well, how am I going to do that? I can't walk on water." And he's like, "Yes, you can. Come to me." And so Peter actually is like trusts, and he starts walking on water. And then suddenly his ego wakes up and he says, "Wait a minute, I can't walk on water." And as soon as he does, he looks away and he starts drowning. And then he's like, "Save me." And he says, "Where's your faith?" And so, and you do have to operate like that. You really do have to. And this is where we kind of come back to it just might be the case that it's just that there are levels of this work that people will, some people will, just going to the psychiatrist and figuring out what your problem with your wife is, and just,
that ain't this.
That ain't this, and that's probably appropriate for some people, or just, changing their diet and going to yoga and stuff. That ain't this. This is inside that, but that's inside this, but that can be, and we just have to admit that this is a very rarefied way, and this is sort of the ultimate this is the ultimate spirituality, really, and it takes us, it takes the pioneers. I mean, every generation has its own pioneers. And it takes us to stand up and say, this is what we're doing. This is the sacrifices we're making. This is how it's working out for us. These are the techniques. This is what we do. These are the bridges we cross. This is the way we suffer, and this is the way we heal, and this is the way we advance. and this is the joy that comes out of it, and just explain that to people. And so that small percentage of people who are on this path will be encouraged and know that they have a community. And it's obviously, like 29 people have come into the chat here just now. And but all but a handful of them have left. When you came in and you saw me and Melissa, it only took 5 minutes for you to realize, oh wait, these are my people. Right? So there's all these people that are coming in here, and it's being suggested to them in their algorithm or whatever, but they're realizing, they're listening to a couple minutes of this, and they're realizing, no, this is not me. I'm out of here. And this is just the way it is. It's very rarefied.
Yeah, it's some people are fine kind of living life with the experience that they have, and it might appear more shallow to some people, but that's fine for them in this lifetime. Like, who are we to judge? But definitely there's something about this lifestyle where, I told you that I was all hopped up on watching The Odyssey, Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey. And, the whole story about a man coming home to his feminine after being distracted and with other, goddesses on other islands and taking drugs and he was all distracted. And then it's about this homecoming of this masculine and right feminine coming back together after so very long. And there's my favorite part in the movie is, Odysseus has all of these suitors in his home trying to, convince Penelope that Odysseus is never coming back and that she should marry someone else, right? And so when Odysseus finally gets back to his own island, he knows that he's going to be met by all of these suitors and probably people that want to kill him. And he's been gone so long, and it's just amazing how when Odysseus comes back to his own property, he has to come back in disguise as a beggar. Like, the way he enters is like very kind of incognito. But one of his mentors identifies him when he comes back, and he says very simply, "Did you come back for revenge?" And Odysseus turns around and he says, "I came back for it all."
There you go.
And that's exactly how I live my life. It's like, I want to feel it all. I want to experience as much as I can. I want to go as deep as I can. I want to learn as much. I just have that drive within me to live a very, very full life. And that doesn't mean necessarily that I've been to every country in the world. It's just this inner development that is so rich and so full that it's almost beyond words, and something almost the material can't really even touch, because it's beyond worlds. It's beyond just going to another country on vacation or getting a new house or getting a new car. It's like you're able to traverse worlds, dimensions. It's so incredibly rich and robust that it's just so incredibly fulfilling.
Yeah, becoming a co-director of the movie of life is a lot more broad and deep than just being a moviegoer and just watching movies.
Exactly. Right. That's exactly. Watching movies is great, and it gives us those reflections. But when you're living this way, you're able to watch the movie and participate as a character and a director. It's just, I have come back for it all, is what it is.
Yeah, and it's similar to the Grail myth we were talking about with Parsifal coming back and and integrating his feminine as well, or Parsifal as an aspect of King Arthur, integrating his feminine. Yes.
Right, and I think that collectively, on the kind of meta level right now with culture, is that, we've realized that woke didn't work, didn't really produce any of the fruits that whoever claimed it was going to produce the fruits of. It just didn't.
It was shadow material. That's all it was.
Oh yeah, it's that. None of that produced anything good,
No.
And
it released some stuff. It put some shadow material on the table if you know how to look at it. Right. if you know how to
That
look
it
at
did.
it.
It did.
Yeah.
But, we've kind of been through this thing where women have been still trying to find their voice and empowerment post the whole feminism, and what happened is men have become quite passive. That's kind of been the MO for quite a while.
Yes.
And like you said, and what I've been feeling lately, and I've witnessed a little more collectively in certain people, is that in women's attempts to empower ourselves and be heard and be a part of the conversation, which so often women feel like they're not, and they are very much left out of the room and left out of the table, is we've dominated men. And in order for culture to become more aware of itself and to improve, we need the elevated voice of both men and women. But because we've been so damaged and hurt by one another in the past, women's voices are still trying to suppress masculine voices, but in the same time saying like, well, why are you so passive? Why aren't you speaking up? Why aren't you doing anything? So there has to be this kind of balancing out of women to my feminine, and my inner masculine is realizing, don't dominate the man's voice. Like, if we need evolution, we need the chance for men and women to speak. We need to give them.
We need to give them what?
I was just going to say, we need to give them the opportunity to show that they're evolving, or we keep pigeonholing them back into the bad man space, bad daddy space. You're a misogynist. Like, if we're evolving, we have to give each other room to share how we've changed.
Right. So obviously it is pathological for women to shut down men and say, don't mansplain to me, or whatever it is. But at the same time, it's like what we were talking about earlier. I was talking about integrating my own anima and learning through my relationship with women what the sort of deeper metaphysical, psychospiritual genius of the sacred feminine is, and then to be able to allow it, to use it, to translate it, to accept it, and it's a quality that men can develop without giving up their own masculinity, without giving up their own logos, be able to actually not just listen to women, but at a feeling state, visceral body level way, actually, it probably starts with a metaphysical or understanding that for a man, you don't have the full formula. You don't have the full formula, and if you make her act like a man, you're still not going to have the full formula. The zero provides and the one carries. And so you have to learn, a man has to learn, or anyone with an animus has to learn how to actually imbibe the feminine, and how to translate it, and how to say, oh, there it is. Thank you. That's the medicine. That's what I needed. And then take it and carry it. It's like she's the child, she's the birther, and then he's the provider. Right? But this is a very deep level of psycho-spiritual communication. And when a woman feels that is actually happening, and that a man is actually taking that from her and using it and putting it to work and saying, oh, okay, you provided the key, okay, and now you're using the key, then you have a deep level of satisfaction between men and women.
I totally agree. And I think what's important here in terms of this function you're talking about is, as you said, men need to realize they're not the only answer.
Right.
A lot of times women know that they're not the only answer, but what really needs to happen is an inner realization and a recognition that women can't keep trying to control men, and men have to kind of I think, move through any of their own internalized shame first to be able to allow the women to really give him that medicine. Because otherwise you get this pathology where women feel like they don't need men and men feel like they don't need women, or they're like the man is just hopped up on power and control and wants his woman to be the same way, and then never getting that proper generative principle that the feminine offers, which we've talked about, which a woman provides on varying levels depending on her own inner integration, a feedback mechanism of where the man is on point and where he needs to look from another angle or perception.
Exactly.
So she gives him that
like
mirror,
a compass.
and then it's a compass, and his ego has to be malleable enough to be able to, number one, value and understand what she's offering, and then to be able to not be offended by her if she's showing him an angle of himself that triggers him. He has to be willing to be like, there's something in what she's saying that I need to look at. And that is just a very fundamental missing piece that could literally change. I mean, this is sacred relationship. This is sacred
it is.
Alchemy and communication that provides something 1 + 1 = 3 into the world when these two can understand their actual role. The roles have been all inversed and they're all distorted. But if you can just understand the woman's function and the male's function, and what needs to happen within each of the sexes to be able to hold and value the other's function appropriately. I mean, that's magic. That creates new worlds when those two can get their act together.
That's how the alchemical child is produced. You know, I see people though in the green stage, like we were talking about earlier, men at the green stage, and I watch them with women, and I feel like the healthy people at the healthy men at the green stage, they really do. They are the examples of being able to do this. The problem is they often have a lot of their own masculinity in the shadow.
Well, because their masculinity is in the shadow, I think the imbalance in green when it goes to where green needs to evolve is when that masculinity is in the shadow, and then who picks up that trait is a woman a little too much in her animus.
That's
and then
what happens.
The green nice guy man can also have a dominating wife.
Oh, so often that's gonna happen.
So that's imbalance. That's when the relationship has to evolve. That's when the person has to
trying
evolve.
to balance the dyad is trying to be balanced by this way. If his animus is not going to be active, well then her's going to be active in hers. But then that pushes down her own femininity, so then he has to carry down the femininity. It's trying to balance itself in the dyad, but what needs to happen is they need to balance those two polarities in themselves.
Exactly.
And then the dyad will be truly balanced.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. I can see it. It's just culture is not even really in green.
There are those. I mean, again,
certain people
visiting certain places in Europe. Like I often talk about Holland. The green really is developed and naturally in there, but it's not overriding the lower stages, and it's not overriding the masculinity. It's so beautiful, I think, to go. Many places in Europe have more. Like if you just sit at a cafe and you compare, especially if you're sensitive to relational, to communication, to subtle communication, and you just watch men and women meeting each other and talking and hanging out, or just hang out with people and stuff, and then compare the European version with the American version, or especially like the Dutch version with the American version, or even the Dutch with the Italian version, or whatever, you're going to see the kind of natural sex and gender-based equality and and it's like they're natural brothers and sisters. It's like men and women are just more naturally integrated in certain places in Europe that and when I find those places in America, there are those green communities, but there's a lot more shadow in those communities too. So it is around, the green is around, and there's even healthy green around, but it's still, to find healthy green, it's still a very small fraction of the world, and it's not that big in America. The American green has a lot of shadow.
Well, I think, as we talked about yesterday, moving from green and really, that next step is really allowing the masculine back in his evolved state, where he understands how the feminine works, it's integrated within him appropriately, and he's able to embody his full range of masculinity again. That would be the goal, and we really need that now in America, in culture. Is, we can't keep doing this with, the Donald Trump leaders and these types of people, or the two green leaders that aren't with the nice guy thing. Like, both of those aren't steering culture in the proper direction. So, I'd love to see somebody that was more evolved in politics, to be able to hold this kind of energy. I think we thought maybe RFK would kind of be that guy, but
we did we kind of thought he would come, but he's just being demoted and put in the corner, and he's just, trying to survive in there or whatever. Colin,
thank you so much for having me on. I think it's the end of your show.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. It was amazing. Thank you. I thought it was really good, and it's really nice for me to not have to do my own spiel for 2 hours. I could do it.
Does anybody else call in? Do you get, have you ever thought about just having like send people in their questions, and then you can have like just a total Q&A kind of thing? Do people call in a lot?
No, they when I first started, I was like, come on, call in, and so I was getting people to call in. Theo's called in before. A handful of other people have called in before. And people, like, tonight's pretty quiet, actually. This is a very quiet night. The last 2 weeks have been very quiet. But usually it's more popular, and there's more comments going in. And if I wasn't talking to you, then I would be, fielding people's comments. And so there is pretty good. I think it's pretty good when we have a good show. There's pretty good interaction in the comments, and it's good because awesome. they get to direct it and stuff. But but it's like I need to find some more people who are at your level that I could have on here. So that would be cool.
Well, I'm sure they're existing. They're out there. Maybe they're just not calling in yet. So but I encourage anybody who's
just
watching,
tucked in the corner somewhere.
Anyone watching in the future, call in, and don't be afraid to call Colin and talk and be on the show. So
thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
All right, Colin, take care.
Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, that was fantastic. Stephanie's amazing. Okay, so if anybody has any comments, go ahead and throw them in there, and then I think we're gonna wrap up here. And I think I went over everything I wanted to go over in this show. And that was a really good conversation. And I've had a couple conversations with her in the last few days, and so I think we were already kind of caught up to speed on where we were, and so it was very natural and came out very well. And you can always find Stephanie, StephanieMoDavis.com, MoDavis. Like, my last name's Davis. Well, her last name's Mo Davis, Stephanie, MoDavis.com. And you can find her on, I don't know if she's still listening, but if she is, she can put her YouTube channel in the chat, and we'll have Stephanie back for sure. And so, all right, everybody. And if anybody else has any ideas for guests, I do want to start, it's having people come on and not just you guys callers, but having some guests. But it is difficult to find people who are not just talking about the work, not just studying it and all of that, but are really in the alchemical vessel, and especially in relationship. It's quite rare. And I'm not even that concerned with how experienced people are. There's a certain amount of experience that is required before you can even have these kinds of conversations. But I don't need, Stephanie's very high level, and that's not necessarily, she's been doing it long enough, and that's not as important. How long you've been really serious on the path and all that kind of stuff. It's just how committed you are. How committed you are, because if you're very committed, there's a lot of material. There's a lot of material that you're gonna be able to bring up and to talk about, and we're gonna have a lot on the table to work with. So if you know any other people that are in this frame, turn me on to them so I can check them out, and we'll try to get them on. Okay, everybody, shadowtechalchemy.com, melissamarimovie.com, and I will see you all next Tuesday. Thank you all for tuning in, and have a great week.